We are joined right now by a national college insider for The Athletic, also a college football reporter for Fox Sports. He is a best-selling author whose books include The QB, The Making of Modern Quarterbacks. He joins us now via Zoom. He is Bruce Feldman. Bruce, it's great to have you back on. Bruce, how are you?
I'm doing great, Jim. Good to be on with you.
It's good to have you. So I always look forward to this talk, Bruce, because if we're talking this time of year, it means we're talking about your popular college football freaks list. Before we get into this year's version, take me back. How did this originally come up? And how do you compile the list of players with freakish athletic ability each year? What's the process behind that?
Jim, it started almost 20 years ago now. It was back in my ESPN days. I was really looking for something to write about in the dead of the off season. And I had always heard, not every school, but a lot of schools would have that one guy who was just the freak athlete that everybody kind of raved about, that was just either could jump ridiculously, vertical jump 44 inches or super fast, or could bench a house, that kind of guy. And I started reaching out to different schools for, do you have that guy? Whether it was coaches I knew or strength coaches I knew. And it started out with 10 guys. And this was back in the days of Calvin Johnson and Adrian Peterson. It was a handful of guys. And then as I kept doing it, it started to get more and more popular and people would talk to me about it. And then probably in the last 10 years or so, especially when I became a sideline reporter for Fox, I'd be out on the field before games and NFL scouts would come up and talk to me about it. And they would, they loved talking about it. And the schools really, really bought into it. So a lot of these schools, a lot of coaches, and then I started having players make their own submissions and, reach out, and it's grown and grown and grown. And then a few years ago, I opened it up beyond just FBS football. And it became this deal where I think for a lot of people who are really into the draft, may not even be huge college football fans, but they realized that some of the guys they were going to be talking about and hearing about as they got closer to the draft process were guys that we were spotlighting in the freaks list before the final season of college football. So it really kind of took off.
So glad to have that background. Bruce Feldman joining us. It really did take off. Like, if it started, Bruce, with 10, this year's list, as an example, has over 100 different players across the nation. Something I found really interesting is the fact that 3 of the top 6 were linemen, are linemen. What does having so many big dudes near the top of the list say about the evolution of this sport?
Yeah, I think you're talking about guys, it's funny. 2 of those guys were recruited by Mario Cristobal, is now at Miami. One of them, Kingsley Sumatai, he had at Oregon, and then Mario left, and eventually he ended up transferring also to BYU. But these are guys who, in the case of Kingsley Sumatai, who's the left tackle at BYU, he is 6'6", 325 pounds. And when I talked to their sports science person at BYU, he was like, last year we had him clocked at 21.5 miles per hour. And if he was 100 pounds lighter to run that fast, that would be, pretty impressive. But just the idea that these guys are so enormous, but can do such remarkable athletic things. We're seeing more and more guys who are like that. And I think that because the training has gotten smarter over the years, because I think it's become something where you're seeing guys who, maybe they're elite athletes in other sports who kind of transition or see a path in football. I think it's only grown and grown. Doesn't mean that there was still obviously like the Anthony Munoz of their day, who was like a great pitcher and a great left tackle at one point. There were guys special back then. I just think now we're finding other metrics to measure just how special some of these guys are.
Bruce Feldman is joining us. All right, Bruce, what about Ohio State's dynamic wide receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr.? You've got him number 2. If we were evaluating guys based purely on pure athletic ability, is he then the best player in college football right now?
Yeah, I would think he is. The only one I'd say who might be close is Caleb Williams, the USC quarterback who won the Heisman. I mean, Caleb can do some amazing things throwing off platform. There's definitely some Patrick Mahomes in his game. But with Marvin Harrison Jr., I mean, think about this. Ohio State has cranked out more elite receivers, over the last, decade than anybody. And from Michael Thomas to the guys who've just come through now in the last few years, Olave, Garrett Wilson, then Jackson Smith and Jigba. This guy is the biggest and the fastest. I mean, when I talked to him the other day, he was talking about how he's improved from 23 miles an hour to almost 23.3, which is a big improvement when you were talking about to be at that level. And he's 6'4", and he runs a shuttle time of sub 4 seconds, which is so impressive when you're talking about, a lot of times the guys who run the best shuttle numbers are usually smaller guys. I mean, he's a lankier, bigger receiver. And what really shined through to me when I talked to him the other day was his approach and his craft and the professionalism and he's really, really mature. So not only do you have this guy with amazing God-given gifts, but also the work ethic and the approach and the discipline. I think that's what makes him really special. He would have been the first receiver taken if he could have been in this past draft. I think he's probably the best receiving prospect to come out of college football in years.
Bruce Feldman joining us. That is strong praise, high praise. Thank you, Alvy. So, Bruce, for those who have not seen the list, who do you have at number 1, and what sets him apart from all the other freakiest of the freaks?
The number 1 guy is at South Carolina right now, and his name is Nicholas Harbor. And he was an elite sprinter in high school, running 10.22 in the 100 meters and, had blazing fast 200 time and 60 time. But what's really different about him is he is now 6'5", 243 pounds. If you go to the Athletic and look at the freaks list, you will see video of Nicholas Harbor running in a 100-meter race against, the kid who gives them the best race is also super fast. That kid is like a head and shoulders shorter than Nicholas Harbor. It looks like Nicholas Harbor is running with toddlers. That's how much bigger he is than the kid who's, next to him. And when I talked to the coach at South Carolina, one of the assistants on Shane Beamer's staff had been at Alabama when they had both Julio Jones, Derrick Henry. I mean, Julio Jones was a freak athlete at Alabama and obviously had a terrific career so far in the NFL. This guy is way bigger than him. He's also bigger than Derrick Henry. But when those guys were coming up, this guy was a full second faster, in terms of in the 100 meters. That's a huge difference in terms of track speed. So to see somebody that big, that fast, I'd never had a true freshman number 1 on this list, but he is that different of an athlete.
Yeah, I was going to say, Bruce, and not only that, he's a true freshman. He's all those things, and he's a true freshman. All right, so the list is amazing. Everybody should go find it. Before you go, really quickly, since college football does kick off next week, let me hit you on this. We're dropping off our son Logan in Boulder to start his freshman year at Colorado. In fact, we're doing so this weekend, Bruce. He committed there as a student before Deion Sanders committed there as a coach. What are your expectations for Coach Prime in his first season?
It will not be boring. Colorado football has been awful for a long time, and especially last year. They're going to be much better. Now, I don't know how much better, whether that means going from 1 win to 4 wins or 1 win to 6. He has brought in a lot of really impressive young talent, especially at receiver and cornerback. He brought his son Shador, who's a good quarterback, who did really well at Jackson State. I think the issues that are going to be harder for them is just the lack of cohesiveness on both lines because all these guys are new to each other. I mean, they completely flipped the roster over, and much of it was done after spring football. But our first game as a crew with Big Noon on Fox is at TCU. That is Deion's first game. He's going back to, the Dallas-Fort Worth area where obviously he played for the Cowboys. And then week 2, we're back with them, and it's Deion's home opener against Nebraska. Can't wait. That place has been sold out. They are all on board for Deion. You're talking about the most charismatic guy in coaching now, and a lot of recruits are listening. I don't doubt that they're going to keep getting better and better as long as he's there because he's able. Because what he is, I think, is so captivating for a lot of recruits, and I think they see it's a blank canvas because he's flipping over the roster and they can get playing time if they're good enough. And we'll see how it goes. I think these first 2 years at Colorado, especially as they transition out of the Pac-12 to go into the Big 12, it's a really fascinating time there.
I mean, the fact that you had one of the worst teams ever getting back-to-back big-time TV games, and it flipped because of one person tells you all you need to know about that one person. But it's going to be fascinating to see how it plays out. Bruce Feldman is a national college football insider for The Athletic, also a college football reporter for Fox Sports. You want to check out the annual College Football Freaks list with The Athletic. It's a great, great read. Bruce, appreciate you. Great job as always. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the bell to be the first to know when we do upload a new video.